I'm Paul Tucker, a contributor to Town, St. John's, and Comics, and this is the True North Country Comics Podcast.
Welcome to the True North Country Comics Podcast, dedicated to promote Canadian comic book and graphic novel creators and supporters. I'm John Swinimer. On this episode, I chat with Paul Tucker about Town, St. John's, and Comics, and more. Please like and subscribe to this website by hitting the subscribe button so you'll be notified about new podcast interviews and article posts. This podcast is available wherever podcasts are enjoyed. Please like, follow, and subscribe. Paul Tucker is a comic creator and art director based in St. John's, Newfoundland. He's been publishing comics since 2004, with notable titles including Tet for IDW Publishing, the award-winning Hollow Heart for Vault Comics, and the cult favorite Nobody Is in Control from Black Mask Studios. In June 2023, he released Stringer, a hardcover crime graphic novel from Image Comics set against the backdrop of the 1983 tennis circuit. Paul is also the co-founder of the Breakdown Comic Jam, a monthly event that's been a fixture of the St. John's comics community for over a decade, and has been leading a comics mentorship program since early 2023. Paul is also a contributor to Town, St. John's, and Comics. Town, St. John's, and Comics, published by Black Panel Press, is a graphic anthology that captures the spirit of St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador, its crooked streets, tangled wires, salt state houses, and the people who live in them. Told by artists who call this place home, each story spotlights a different neighborhood, from Rabbittown to Rawlin's Cross, through a unique visual voice. Some are funny, some melancholic, some bursting with color, and others inked in black and white, but all of them share the same beating heart, a deep connection to place. It's not just a comic about a city, it's a comic of a city, shaped by it, inspired by it, and impossible without it. So, without further ado, here's my chat with Paul Tucker about Town, St. John's, and Comics, and more. So, Paul Tucker, thank you very much for taking time to chat with me.
Thanks for having me.
No, I appreciate your time. I know we haven't chatted in a long time, so it's great to catch up. Before I get going with all the questions, I'd like to know, though, what are you reading today?
I'm actually rereading through Transmetropolitan, the entire series, which is kind of a sadly fun read in 2025, where a lot of the things written in that book seem to be just happening all around us, but we don't have a real life Spider Jerusalem to go, tear through it all. So I've never actually read the entire series, so I'm towards the end of that.
Ah, very good. So we're here talking today because of your involvement in a project called Town, St. John's, and Comics. So I want to ask you a little bit more about that. What is that anthology book all about?
Town, it was the brainchild of Nancy Pedri, the editor. She kind of brought together a bunch of cartoonists who are based here in St. John's, Newfoundland. Something that's never really been done before. We're bringing us all together under one roof, per se, to all tell stories where each of us get to pick a neighborhood and base a story around that, which is like a really fantastic kind of constraint to work under. There's 8 stories in there. I know pretty much all the participants very well, and it was fun to be all working on a shared goal.
What was your story that you contributed?
My story is called Rabbittown, which is the neighborhood I live in St. John's. When it came time to actually work on my own, I do write my own stories. I typically work with writers. When I do work on my own projects, I like to keep the scope kind of, accessible for me, I guess. Writing about simple things that I know a lot about, which usually, in this case, was just drawing inspiration from my daily commute to my studio, which is a very short drive from my home. But I come here very early. I come to the studio 5:30-ish usually each day to get a bunch of comics done before I have to switch over to some advertising work. I've seen some things on those drives, and this story was like a vehicle for that.
Okay. Now, you were saying that each of these stories are about St. John's. Is there a narrative that runs through all of them, or are they each complete separate stories?
Oh yeah, they all stand alone. A lot of the fun of the book is the variety on this on display. I mean, you get that in an anthology generally, but you can definitely find certain through lines and certain things you can kind of look for in each story. I think it's fun to like look through each story and see how the different artists depict familiar landmarks. But no, each one is entirely its own thing, and even tone and genre and the vibe kind of can shift dramatically.
You mentioned that there's other people who contributed to the book. Can you name some of them?
There's, of course, my friend and mentor, Wallace Ryan, who's, the godfather of Newfoundland comics. He's an institution here. He and I have been hosting the Comic Jam together for 15 years. And he taught me comics when I was 12 years old, which is amazing to think about. So he has two short stories in there. There's Mike Fian, Sam Din, Kelly Basto, Leon Chung, Andrew Hawthorne. These are all like people who are very active in the community making comics. And I've had most all, if not all of them here in my studio as visitors, and I consider them friends.
Yeah, lots of great talent in St. John's, that's for sure. Where can people buy the book?
Well, we had a Kickstarter campaign, which was very successful. So if you never got it through the Kickstarter, it is available through the Black Panel website. That's our publisher, who's also based out of St. John's. And he is working to get it into comic book stores through distribution channels, which is, I believe, coming up for next year. We always plan to have it be a big local launch first, and then follow up with in national, international markets. So that will be coming soon.
Good. You mentioned follow-up. Are there plans for a follow-up edition? And maybe will it be tied to the next edition of the St. John's Comic Arts Festival?
Outside of just like joking around, we haven't really set in motion anything for a follow-up volume yet. I think a lot of the core team involved in production of the book are maybe a little fatigued. There was a lot behind the scenes to get this thing together. Our publisher worked his ass off for sure. I did a lot of art direction and kind of design work and some mentorship along the way for this project. But we were all riding high off the book launch, which was on the Saturday night of the St. John's Comics Arts Festival. And it was a tremendous success. We had a fantastic turnout. Books were flying. And in that giddy atmosphere, I think a lot of us were like, okay, let's keep it going because, 8 neighborhoods is nothing for what you could cover in St. John's. And we now have a better sense of the scene here. There's more and more people making comics here. Like, it would be a great platform if we were to continue it. And from my knowledge, the festival loved having it as a sort of a pillar to work around. So yeah, it would certainly make sense if there was a second volume to tie it in with the festival, but we're not there yet.
Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't get out to the St. John's Comic Arts Festival this year. I wanted to ask you, how was that event for you? Was it a great success?
Yeah, it was fantastic. Like the energy in the air was very much akin to other calves. So if you've been to a tea calf, I think we managed to capture that spirit like right out of the gate, and people showed up. We had a tremendous turnout, lots of positivity in the air. We gave out the inaugural Captain Newfoundland Award, which was a real like highlight for me. Yeah, it was great. It was good for sales as well. Like I had no idea what to expect, but people were there to buy books and it was very positive.
Glad to hear. I'd like to switch gears now completely and ask you a question I should have asked long ago, but wanted to ask you about the tools you use to create your art. Maybe you could walk me through your process of creating as well.
I'm pretty old school, I guess, these days. I work, I'd say 70% with analog tools on paper. The coloring is done digitally in Photoshop, but generally I'll pencil on an 11 by 17 piece of Bristol. I'll scan that in for preservation and print it out again on the reverse side of the sheet of Bristol and ink it on that side. So if you ever purchase a piece of original art from me, you get 2 for 1 because there's pencils on one side and inks on the other. And that gets scanned back in again. And there's always a push and pull with technology. Like it can't be beat for bringing something into the computer and being able to fix weird proportions or address other little drawing issues here and there. But I still mostly like dragging a pencil I use a Hunt 102 nib, which is the quintessential classic nib. Like many artists, I tried every inking tool under the sun and decided that the one that everybody uses is the one I like. Yeah, I mean, you get inspired now and then to switch up your tools, and I've dabbled with the brush, and other sort of more experimental means, but ultimately I really enjoy. I'm inking this week, so I'm right in that headspace. It's still my favorite part of the process.
Cool. Now, I was talking to a creator not too long ago, and she was dabbling with the idea of using squid ink as part of the inking process. Has that ever crossed your mind?
No, I guess if ever I would have been, I did a piece for CBC last year about giant squids, and I was illustrating squids. That would have been the time, I guess.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool, though. No, every now and then I like to just grab a new tool and see what comes out of it, because it's like a good way to like break up your mental patterns and like just see things a bit differently. And you get excited by a tool that can carry you through a lot of long hours at the drawing board. I haven't tried squid ink though.
Well,
I'd be curious.
Don't know if it works, but it might be something to consider. You never know. So we've been talking about Town, St. John's, and comics. I wonder if you have any other projects on the go that you can talk about.
Most of what I'm working on, I'm working on a new book with the same team that did A Stringer, which came out from Image 2 years ago. That was an original graphic novel. So it's another project with Patrick Kinland, the writer, and Wallace Ryan will be doing the hand lettering again. So that's fairly well along. So I'm hoping it'll see the light of day next year.
We talked about the St. John's Comic Arts Festival. Any other big festivals or events in your future?
I'm not sure. I find myself kind of like going every 2 years. I kind of get out to TCAF. I just love that show, and it's always a good time. So I think it'll depend on when this next book is going to hit the shelves. I'll probably schedule something around that. So remains to be seen. I'm bad at planning these things.
Well, then maybe what you should do is provide the online information about where people can find about your current and your future projects so they can follow you.
I'm somewhat online. I post very infrequently to Instagram primarily these days. So I'm Paul Tucker Art on there. And I do have a website, but it's basically neglected now. Every year I make a resolution that I'm going to be better at being online, and I'm just not. I'm much better in person.
Well, Paul, those are all the questions I have for you, but I'm wondering, is there something I didn't ask that you'd like to get across in this interview?
One thing I would like to bring up is I've been doing some mentorship lately, and I've been finding that to be incredibly rewarding. So I've been hosting mentorship nights out of my studio since early last year. And if anyone who is a creator has ever thought like maybe I should do something like that, I would highly recommend it. It's really fun to like watch other people get their stories together and like over the line. A lot of people are kind of teetering on the edge of like having something they want to do, but it's daunting and it's a lot to try and manage in your own mind. So either as a mentor or as a mentee, I found it to be an incredibly cool thing. So I would encourage more of this out there.
Thanks to Paul for the chat. You can discover more about Paul Tucker on Instagram at Paul Tucker Art. You can discover more about Town, St. John's, and comics on blackpanelpress.com. And thank you for tuning in to the True North Country Comics podcast. I invite you to visit the True North Country Comics website to listen to even more conversations about creators making comic books and graphic novels. I also encourage you to subscribe via the website so you'll be notified about new podcast interviews and article posts. This podcast is available wherever podcasts are enjoyed. Please like, follow, and subscribe. You can follow along True North Country Comics on most social media sites. And you're encouraged to send any and all feedback to john@truenorthcountrycomics.com. Thanks for tuning in, and come back soon for another episode. Bye for now. True North Country Comics Podcast is copyright True North Country Comics, copyright 2025.